our great grandmother, Miss Margaret Wells, who raised me and, my sisters, my five sisters, the job that she did, taking us, the six of us, when I believe she was 65 when she first got us. And then she was also working at the time where she would wake up at 5 a.m, get us dressed, make sure we were on time to get to school, go to work, come back, make sure before we got home, then cook and clean, and then put us to bed, and then do that again all over, every day. Seeing her and her passion and her dedication for making sure that we were provided for and taken care of, it's truly inspiring. And so then, to go back to the question, in the moment, I would say I don't really think I missed it, just because she was such a dominant person in our life. With that being said, she kind of took on both roles. She took on the role of father and mother and everything in between, as important as having a father or mother or whoever. It's just having somebody there that loves you and is invested in your future and invested in seeing you move forward. And I think at a minimum, I had that.
What resources you used around you to help you in those areas where it took a man to help you in certain things in life?
What I'll say is part of that I see as being a struggle is you don't know what you don't know. So where I'm running to, where I might have some issues is now it's like, okay, well, things pop up with my boys and trying to figure out, okay, how would I approach that?
The person on the other side, when they're interrogating you, they know everything about you. They study you. They know everything about you, but you don't know anything about that person on the other side. That's how God is for somebody who feels like they don't have a father. You have a father. God is a father to the fatherless. Everywhere you go, that two-way mirror is there. God sees you. You may not see him, but he's there. So I just want people who feel like they don't have a father, they don't have anybody who cares for them. God is always there. He's always watching you. He sees you. You just have to be willing to build that relationship with him to know him, because he's on the other side. He created you before you were even in your mother's womb. He knows everything about you, but you just have to be willing to let him in.
Look at the things around you. You have resources in your Bible. You have men of God in your life, and men of God from the past who did mighty things that you can look at as an example. And don't let your circumstances limit you. Let it expose you and let it reach you to the limits that you can never imagine.
Hi guys, welcome to Combat Culture Let Me Testify. My name is Antavia.
And my name is Felicia.
And on today's episode, we'll be talking about overcoming the fears and struggles of a fatherless home. Today on our show, we have Mr. Chad Jones. Mr. Jones is an amazing husband, father, son, and brother, and our amazing cousin.
Mr. Jones is a man of many talents and accomplishments. He has designed many beautiful structures in Florida we view today. Chad is currently an adjunct professor at a university in Florida where he helps mold the architects of tomorrow.
Today, we're excited to have him on the show today to share his testimony to prayerfully mold better men and fathers of tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Chad.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys asking me to come on. It's great that what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. First question we have for you is, growing up without a father can be very challenging and emotional. This often leads to men to get different vices or come a part of different situations and turn into like promiscuity, drugs, and the street life for guidance and fulfillment. So what are some of the coping skills you develop as a child to become the man you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. So for your listeners, for your viewers, for those who don't know about our great grandmother, Miss Margaret Wells, who raised me and, my sisters, my five sisters. It was, she was everything. I was talking with grandma earlier this week about it and what an amazing job that she did. And like the older I get, the older my kids get, the more that I'm amazed by, what she did. So I guess I start there because I look back at the job that she did, taking us, the six of us, when I believe she was 65 when she first got us. And then she was also working at the time. And so just thinking back towards, to the schedule where she would wake up at 5 a.m, get us dressed, make sure we were on time to get to school, go to work, come back, make sure before we got home, then cook and clean, and then put us to bed, and then do that again all over, every day. And it's just like with the two of us, married, got 2 kids. It's 2 of us, 2 healthy grown. and it's just like, just to think back on that is amazing. And so in the moment, I guess, as a kid, you don't really think about, you don't think about it. Like she said and did all the right things. Like she had us in church every Sunday morning, in time for Sunday school. Right. We had to be there on time or she'd be be upset. That in itself, you start to plant those, seeds that shapes you as a person, as an adult, and just seeing her and her passion and her dedication for making sure that we were provided for and taken care of. It's truly inspiring. And so then, to go back to the question, in the moment, I would say I don't really think I missed it just because she was just such a dominant person in our life. With that being said, she kind of took on both roles. She took on the role of father and mother and everything in between. So that in itself is inspiring. So I think as important as having a father or mother or whoever, it's just having somebody there that loves you and is invested in your future, invested in seeing you move forward. And I think at a minimum, I had that. Your cousins, my sisters will all attest to that. Beyond that, I look at everything being, where I am, what we've accomplished, what my sisters have accomplished. I think that's a product of your environment and the lessons that you grow up in. So I don't look back with any regrets or I wish things were different, because all of that, in itself was a lesson. And so that's something I appreciate, not just from her, but, the experiences. I think that's a lesson that I use moving forward. That's what builds character. That's what builds the things that the foundation that helps define you as a person, as a Christian, as somebody that's trying to succeed in society. And that is something that I think I can pass down, to my sons.
Like you said, Nanny, she was definitely a strong figure. She played the role in both. But it takes a man to help a man in some areas.
For sure.
So you can dig deeper into what resources you used around you to help you in those areas where it took a man to help you in certain things in life.
What I'll say is part of that I see as being a struggle is you don't know what you don't know. So where I'm running to where I might have some issues is now it's like, okay, well, things pop up with my boys and trying to figure out, okay, how would I approach that? How would I have the instruction to approach that? And some things, Nanny, she didn't know, right? She didn't know how to tell me how to handle my emotions, how to act in certain situations, because that wasn't where her job was to make sure that we were provided for. Now reflecting on that and running into situations where with my boys, like, how should I approach this? And a lot of times I tell you it's a guessing game. I don't know. So that in a way I think is something that is a struggle, or at least I have to be more mindful or prayerful about. I think where I would I think I've always been observant, and there have been people, as like people in the church, like our pastor, there have been mentors in the community that I could rely on from time to time that says, hey, I'm dealing with this situation. What do you think? How do you think I should handle it? And so I try to use as much of the resources that, I could around me with what I had. And so, just try to be mindful and prayerful and, rely on the resource that we do have. Like, right. It's sometimes if you don't have a father, you don't have to look to other people around you. And that in itself, if you have a good, strong community around you, that's also helpful. And that can supplement for some of the shortcomings that you might have, like depending on your household situation. Your dad is a great example of that. And I just, even from afar, I was admire Uncle Gideon and how, he did all of the right things, and he set the example for you, for your journey. And so that in itself is inspiring. And again, just seeing that, and okay, so that's the example that I can follow, because he was that good example for how you guys turned out.
Yeah. And like you said, how you lean on your resources. Like my pastor said, exposure leads to expansion. A lot of times the people to get that expansion, they need to have access to the people that can expose them. I remember, like you said, with my dad, how he used to come and get you, like he'll wake me up at 4:00 in the morning, come get you from the airport, from school, right, and go and do different things to make sure that even though we kind of stayed a little bit far from you, whenever he had the opportunity, let me be a man in his life and show him different things of how it can be done. And you have that support system in me. And other people in Brooksville that I heard about that, helped you on your journey. You have to, it's people there to help, but you also have to open your mouth to ask for the help.
Right. You have to be receptive to it. And it's not one size fit all. Like one of the things I really admired about the way that Uncle Gideon's approach you guys is he was academics, academics really stressed that. And that's something that even now, and Nanny was like that too. Nanny didn't have, she had a 5th grade education. education. And one of the things that she made us do every day we got home, we had to study for an hour, whether we had homework or not. Having that as an example, then having Uncle Gideon as an example to, hey, you guys are going to do your homework or your studies first. So just pulling those little anecdotes from the various resources that, like you said, Felicia, is key. And to your point, having an open mind and being receptive to that, not pig-headed. Not my sisters will say I'm very stubborn publicly, but at the same time, that was something that I was very receptive on is following examples that were good examples for how to be a father or even a man, frankly, and how to conduct yourself in public and all of those good things.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I admired about you is that you didn't make excuses for certain things. Like you went out there and you got it. And that's important for men out there and boys to know that it is people that you can look up out there, but you also have to be, like you said, receptive to those resources. Just like if they want to learn how to play basketball or sports or anything that you want to do, you do the research and you research those things to learn better. And if you want to be a better father, a better husband, a better man, you need to do that research in order to be that person that you want to be, because that what you wanted to do from, I remember when you were younger, you would build things and stuff like that. You knew that. So you did the research on that. That's why you are who you are today, because you just didn't sit back and say, well, I didn't have a father growing up. I didn't have this, and making excuses and coping in a bad way. You found a positive way to cope. So that's one thing I really admired about you. And that's definitely something that these young boys and these men, they can take away from that is don't let your situation determine your circumstances, because you just didn't be like, oh, well, I live with my grandmother raised me. You were raised with your sisters. It's not like she had a huge house, but you had all the resources that you needed. And you went and you took advantage of those resources. You just didn't say, well, I live in this environment or I'm around these certain people, I can't go any further. How far you went and where you went at in your life, that's just those people who have those things like, well, I didn't grow up in that type of lifestyle. I didn't grow up with the dad. I grew up in a rough neighborhood. You can't let that determine where you want to go. You have to be determined and go get those resources yourself, and not just think that it's just going to open up and come to you just by standing at your door and playing the victim. So the coping mechanisms that you did were amazing, and I'm very proud of you, and you are a great man.
Thank you. Yeah, and to that point, and Tavia, I think something I struggle with as a father is that sometimes, again, part of the motivation to growing up is, all right, if I have kids, I want to be able to set that example. I want to be that person that they can look up to. I want to feel like, when they grow up, they can say, okay, yeah, my dad was here for me. And that's something I've always, that's been a big motivation for me to be able to set that example. But at the same time, I look at it from an opposite perspective. Like I have these life lessons and these situations that I can rely on that has kind of molded me to be the person that I am. And so one of the things I struggle with is, okay, I've provided what I think is a good environment for my boys who are 8 and 6. And, how do I teach them to not be complacent and to not be comfortable in the environment they are, so that they can then go on to do, great things and do better things than what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? So that's a struggle in itself too. And not having that, not having an example of that is like, okay, I'm just, I'm going by faith, like trying to figure out, what's the best way of doing it. But to your point, just being able to rely on resources, and I try to do the best I can. And grandma's a good person to talk to about these things. She's the sum of her life experiences. So I do call her and talk to her at times about different things. But
and that's really good, because we all struggle with different things, no matter what walk of life you come from. Everyone is going to have a struggle. But the thing is, what you said, like being honest with your struggles, because then that's how God is able to step in and help. Send discipleship to help you in those areas. But everyone says a closed mouth don't get fed. Open your mouth and say the things that you want, and God will send those people to help you in those areas.
Right.
Like my sister said, not only you, but your sisters as well. Like you said, y'all all did very good with the resources you had. You all are people of many talents. We're proud of all of you all, how you overcame despite your circumstances.
I actually talk about this the other night where with my wife about it, like how I admire them, my sisters, for all of their talents. And they just they're very talented in a lot of different areas. And we're talking about like some of the best art comes from pain and from trauma. And I think one of the things that I appreciate by all of them, and they have talent in their own special ways, how sometimes they can create these beautiful whatever it is, and they just have a great way of expressing themselves and showcasing that. And it comes from trauma, but they've what I admire about them is they've all kind of had their unique ways of dealing with it, and it comes out and sometimes just beautiful art or fashion or whatever they seem to be in at the moment.
Yeah. Growing up in a fatherless home for many men today is the main reason for downfall in life and lack of success due to lack of experience. A lot of men say they struggle in this area because they were never given the tools on how to perform in this area, which results in setbacks and unfulfillment in life. May you explain what kept you grounded and the tools you used to become the successful and loving father and husband you are today, despite your circumstance growing up without a father in the home. So it's kind of a piggyback up off the last question, but just like providing more tools.
Yeah. So from a tools perspective, again, it's kind of going back to where on the surface, the fatherless home is, you can look at that on the surface being like the front and center or foremost of like the struggle, right? But there's oftentimes something deeper than that, right? And that is, to me, it's one of the things I try to, especially even with just busy I am at work, I try to be there as much as I can for like soccer games or whatever type of activities they got going on. And sometimes it's just about somebody showing up and letting you know that they care. Right. They're backing you and they support you. So not having a father there is a way, that's on the surface, that's a symptom of something larger. Whereas like you can look deeper and say, well, it's not a father, or it's not anybody that's there to support me. I will say that, Nanny was there as much as she could. She made sure that she was there to support us in whatever that we were doing. She would go for like awards or scholarships or whatever. She tried to make herself available. So I think, that's to me, that's an easy way of, making an excuse. Right. That's what I've tried my best not to do, is make excuses for any situation. Use it as motivation. Use it as an example. Like I said, that was one of the things I wanted to make sure I was, I was present of mind with my boys, and making sure that I'm there, making sure that they see that I'm there. So that was a tool of motivation. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm very stubborn, as you know. And somewhere in my mind, early on, I said I wanted to be an architect, and I think that's part of it, right? That's a tool that I had. Like, I didn't know the first thing about being an architect. I knew that I like to draw. I knew I like to build things. I had no idea what was actually required to ultimately do that. So, to your point earlier, I did my research and everything, figured out what it was. But part of that process is being too stubborn to quit. So I, kind of use that in my favor. That's kind of a tool. And just having an open mind and being receptive, like we talked about earlier, because you don't know who God will put in your life at any time. And, you have to be willing and able to receive what that message or what that blessing is at the time. You'd be surprised how many little situations that you are in that would propel you to that next level or that next step. And it doesn't have to be a fatherly figure. It doesn't have to be a community member. It can be whatever. You just got to be open and receptive to accept it and allow that to take you to the next step, either good or bad, right? Sometimes we do have to go through some struggles to kind of break our old self down to move forward. And so sometimes you have to use those struggles. There's a book that I've read recently, and by Malcolm Gladwell, is David and Goliath, where that talks about about that where, and so I try to use those circumstances and say, okay, what's the best way of kind of approaching this and moving forward? And so take a situation like, okay, well, like growing up, I'll give an example, being in the classes or things that I'm in, I'm oftentimes exposed to things that, I'm just not used to growing up in South Brooksville, right? What that resulted in is that, okay, well, if I'm going to be versed on that, I have to do more research on it, right? And so that's something that's I think core to what I do. I do a lot of research, and that's because like I've always had the mentality, well, I don't know, and if I'm going to catch up, I'm going to need to research my way into doing that. So I do oftentimes go into a lot of situations very prepared because of what my perceived view of not knowing inspired me to do research, and then sometimes I come into a situation knowing more because I've didn't assume anything and I've done the research to know about it. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, with research and caring, and a main tool too is family. You're all figuring it out, like you said.
Absolutely.
So it's just like certain situations in life, you're not going to know how to handle it.
Right.
Your life experience is what you just know is right, that everybody, like you said, wants someone to care for them. So what you have to do to step up for that person. And I remember growing up too, like with my mother, my father too, like, I remember they would tell us, and she probably gonna get mad at me for saying this because she knows, but for real, like every year for Christmas, she'll tell me and my sister, you only put the two main things that you want because we have to put money to the side to get gifts for you all.
Yeah.
So it's just like at the end of the day, it was always their main priority to make sure that we have to make sure as a family we're showing up for everybody.
So a lot of
people have to step up in that area of family too, because you don't have that father or you don't have men around you. You have your family.
You have family, right?
Be able to receive that love, and even if you don't have the tools, understand that we all want somebody to care. We all want somebody to be there. So just be there, even if you don't have the money. Just be there. Right,
and that I'm glad you brought up the Christmas example because that's one thing I appreciate now. I hope I can find a way to make sure my boys are appreciative of that as well. But obviously, we didn't. Christmas wasn't a big proposition for us in terms of like your traditional way of you were looking forward to getting all these gifts and stuff. But what I really enjoyed was, you guys and Uncle Caleb and those guys like coming on Christmas. I always thought that I always looked forward to that. So Christmas for me was always about, okay, the family's coming together and we're going to have a good time. We're going to laugh and joke and have a good time. And so that for me was like Christmas now, like I don't even really care about gifts, right? I don't care if I get any gift, but if we're, have the ability to all come together and laugh and have a good time, I appreciate that. So that's taken okay, well, traditionally people, they look forward to getting gifts and, all this stuff. And that just never was our reality. But we, taking that situation, now I look at Christmas, different. I enjoy that kind of that family coming together. And part of that was, you guys coming up, every Christmas and hang out and spend time with the rest of the family. So
and it was the remembrance and recycling of love, because even some gifts will be hand-me-downs. Like I remember I'd get Brianna clothes, Brianna would get my clothes, we will exchange clothes because we were all struggling, and it's just like as a family we leaned on each other, just not on Christmas but all the time. And it's just like having those tools. I feel like a big tool of what you were saying is that family and having someone that cares for you. It definitely helped you get through. And if you don't even have the money, doing the research of what makes that person happy so you can be there for them in a way that's needed.
No, I agree. I definitely agree with that. I'm glad you brought that up.
And that's true, like you said. And I like that what motivated you as well is saying that you didn't know something, and just because you didn't know, you weren't like, well, I don't know, so I don't care. You were like, I'm going to do the research. I'm going to do what I need to do in order to be who I need to be. So I hope that when people watch this, the young men, young women, to say I don't know is not a thing that should motivate you not to do anything. It should motivate you to want to know and to do better.
Right. And to follow that up a little bit, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all responsible for ourselves, right? We're all responsible for our own destiny and our own walk. You can't just throw your hands up and say, okay, well, this is the situation that I'm in and there's nothing that can be done, because that's, at the end of the day, you're responsible for yourself. One of the things that I joke about a lot, but Nanny was, I don't know if she was joking or not. She always tell us, she would say at 18, you don't have to get a job, you don't have to go to college, but you got to get out of here. So, it's like, okay, well, at 18, I need to make some like hard decisions. And whether she was joking or not, what that did was like prepare me like, okay, at 18, I got to be an adult. Like, I don't have that foundation. I can go slack off and, I could come home and rely on that, like in school, like, going to college, I went to St. Louis by myself. I knew I had to do well in school because going home wasn't an option. Right. So you kind of use those, like you can make excuses for yourself, but at the end of the day, you're responsible for yourself. And so I've always taken that to heart. And, one of the things that I said recently is like always constantly trying to raise my floor. What is like bottom falls out? Like, what does that look like? And so I try to make decisions and things that like, okay, if everything goes bad, like I'm in a position to still be able to care for, my family. And so, yeah, you can't make excuses. You, like you said, and Tavia, you have to research. Like, for example, when I became, knew I wanted to be an architect, I started at that point. So I said, okay, what are the steps that I need to, when this was in 8th grade, 9th grade. So I started at, okay, what does it take to become a licensed architect? And then I worked my way backwards from that all the way to, okay, well, now I need to be applying to these schools when it's time for me to go to college. Right. And then I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to apply for these schools, I need to have a certain GPA or I need to be doing up until then. So, yeah, so it's just like, okay, you can, you have to make those good decisions, not make excuses, and then research and do the things that you need to do and work hard. Right. That's another thing that we haven't mentioned either. Yeah. That I try to instill to my boys is like making sure that nobody's outworking you. Right. And nobody's going to work harder than you. And I look at Nanny to that example because like I can't, like, it's like if I wasn't in the house, like I can't explain like the level of commitment that takes. Yeah. Right. And so like I can't complain about like everything I'm doing right now. It compels in comparison to that, like seeing that. So I don't like to let anybody outwork me in anything. So, and I use that as an example.
That's true. And that's like one time me and my husband having a conversation. And like when I see people be like, well, I didn't have a daddy, I didn't have a mom, or nobody taught me this. And I'm like, at a point, yeah, when you're a child, some people could have messed up and they could have did some things. But you are an adult way longer than you're a child. And it's a point where you have to take the responsibility and accountability where you can't blame mom, dad, sister, brother, and everybody else. You have to take that accountability and take, like you said, responsibility for yourself and know that, hey, like you said, do the research, do the work. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be hard times. But like you said, just like a diamond, it requires that pressure to make it that diamond. So you're going to go through some things, you're going to go through some challenges, but you're going to come out beautiful on the other side.
Right. That's great and well said. Even with my boys, like now, like at the end of the day, yeah, I'm going to make sure I'm doing the things that I think is necessary for them to succeed or put them on the right path. But at the end of the day, they're one of the things I would like to teach them. I hope to teach them in the time that they're here. You're responsible. You have to take responsibility for your own actions. It's not what daddy or mama did or didn't do for you. At the end of the day, you're responsible. You have to make the proper decision. So like, yes, I can expose you. I can give you the information I think is relevant and necessary. But for you to get and reach your true potential, you're going to have to make those decisions to do that. So my job as a father, I see is making sure that they're exposed and they have the right means and they see the path, they see the options that are out there. But at the same time, I also want to make sure that they are at some point when I'm not in the picture or they're out on their own, they can make those same choices that I made and make good, sound decisions and not focus or rely on what I did or didn't provide for them.
Right. Amen.
And if we could back off what you said about Nanny, like I do believe that she would have let you come back home.
Okay. She like grandma come back home with 2 babies and that's what I'm saying. You would never be homeless.
Yeah, she was here. She would she wouldn't let.
She helped my mom. She helped everybody. Like Nanny is the type of person, and that's the thing too. Like that I love about what you said in your testimony, that a lot of the things that you're saying, like, I don't know everything, and you're open to learning. And it's generations. It's like different generations are different. Every lifestyle is different. We're all growing to learn. The only person that's all knowing is God.
Right.
So it's just like the older you get, as times change, things change. And one thing that I can say from my own personal experience and speaking to people, like, I feel like it's really important to unlearn that at 18 you're on your own. No, I needed my parents the most when I turned 18 because who else is going to teach you how to be an adult?
Absolutely.
You know? And it's just like, that was good for me that I had that community to come back home to. Especially, it's very strong in the African community. Like, we look back, especially when you're an adult, like, I'm here, call me, this is my number, because that's when you're going to need those tools the most.
Yeah. And that's a great point, Fee. Like that, that can't be understated either, how much that support system is necessary and beneficial to you moving forward, knowing that it's tough, and you have to make, hopefully you're making the right decisions out there, but you're gonna mess up sometimes, and that's just a reality. And sometimes it might be a misstep, but knowing that, again, going back to that support, and knowing that you have the love and support of the people around you, that okay, there's a comfort level there. So even with my sons, like, hey, you're gonna make hopefully you're making the right decisions and stuff, but knowing that this makes me hopefully feel good that I can be there, support you, like point you back in the right direction, but knowing that I can be there, and I can be there in the time of need and support for them if they fall down. So part of that too is me telling myself, okay, if I'm really going to get where I want to go, I'm going to have to be in a position to stand on my own 2 feet and make it work and make decisions, the right decisions in tough situations. So part of that is me in my own, like, kind of self-motivation, but no doubt she took care of us and raised us from, God, Brianna was a baby when we got with her. She just had a love for children and caring for her family more than anything else. She cared for her family, and that was evident, and that serves as the foundation for not just me, but all of us, that family tree as a whole moving forward. And I think that's reflective not just in what me and my sisters are doing, but even what you guys are doing with what you're doing with the podcast and everything. This is just so inspirational, and you can see the foundations of what she laid in that.
And that's important, like you said, the foundation. She laid the foundation, because there's no rule book on how to be a parent, how to be a mom or a dad. You just do the best that you can, and every generation you learn what's better and what to take and learn from that.
Yeah, and that leads into my next question. Like you said, like, you have to stand on your own 2 feet as an adult, but even God, before everything that we want, every answer that we need is in the Bible. Even before God left his disciples to stand on their own 2 feet, he gave them lessons. Like, as a child, when you take your first steps in life, you're going to fall down, and you have an adult there to help lift you up until you are able to take the walks on your own. You're not left alone. And the same thing applies when you go into adulthood. You're going to fall, because it's a new walk of life that you don't have any knowledge of. And it's just like, you can stand on the words of the people around you if you don't have those resources. More importantly, you can stand on the word of God of how to know how to navigate through life and build that strong foundation so you can stand on your feet and get through the issues of life. So my question is, how did your relationship with God guide you as a father and the man you are today?
So, it's different. And even now, when we're growing up, like I told you, we were in Sunday school, 8:00 sharp every Sunday, and the midweek services, and then first Sunday in church to 4:00, that type of thing. So she definitely set that foundation for, hey, let's being church and God as the foundation for how we are as a family. Even now, we have a praying grandmother, and she's gonna remind you of that every time she talks to you, that she's praying for you, and she's got your back. So as a result of that, I think my foundation it's always been guided by God and the foundations of family, being in church. I think as I've gotten older, I would say I've internalized more of my walk. My journey has been more inward and retrospective and prayerful. So, I do spend a lot of time, kind of by myself and reflecting and praying. And I think what I've tried to do is, at least with my, my boys, is say, hey, this is, or at least start to set the foundation for, hey, this is your journey. And, maybe it isn't that we have to be in church every Sunday at 8:00 and on time. Maybe it doesn't take that, but what it can help, or at least I'm trying to help instill, is that, hey, this is your walk, and your walk might be different from mine, but keep that as a foundation. Use that as your guiding principles. How you operate in life. Treat everybody with respect. Treat others as you would like to be treated, and be prayerful if you come up with face with a difficult situation, knowing that you have that foundation. You have somebody that is looking over you, that is waiting for you to come and ask for help and ask for guidance, and you being in a position to say, okay, I'm ready to accept whatever that lesson is, good or bad. And so it helps further me to be a better person. That's me in my own journey, and I'm hoping to further carry that and push that along with my boys, so that it helps them with their own personal journey.
So church is essential, but like, as you said, as you're getting older, you said you're spending more time with God, personal time. Mm-hmm. And I heard you say that you went to church, and then you said now you're spending time with God. So the church is essential, but God created the church. The main thing is relationship with Him. Mm-hmm. So as long as you continue on that path, relationship with Him, He's going to give you everything you need and more.
Oh yeah.
My thing is, I feel like some people feel like just because they go to church I'm in the church every Wednesday. I go to church Friday. I'm Saturday, Sunday. I'm there all the time.
And I didn't want to be the one to say that, but
it's out of habit for you to do it. But do you know the person that you're doing it for? That's just like a husband who could just buy his wife flowers all the time just because he wants them. But do you truly know the flower that she likes? Do you know if she even really wants you to do that? You're just like, well, I'm just bringing you flowers because it's just something that a husband does. Right. But what if your wife don't even like flowers? Like, or do you even know her favorite flower? Are you just getting this out of habit? Because this is just routine. It's routine for me to do this, but do you really have that relationship? Because you can literally spend every day with somebody going to church, but even in your household, you can spend every day with your spouse and don't even really know what they like.
Right.
You know them and have that relationship. So like Felicia said, the most important thing to me is relationship. Yes, nothing wrong with going to church, but you can go to church every day, and literally as soon as you leave the church, you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing.
I didn't want to be the one to say it, but we went through a lot of church and we saw a lot of habits. And none of them were great. So.
Yeah, because
I'm glad you brought that in.
Relationship is useless.
Yeah,
church without relationship, that's when you have gossiping, that's when you have fornication, that's when you have all these things that does not represent God. So if you don't have that relationship, then there's no point. Like you can go to church, but if you don't want to build that relationship, then you're not connected to the ultimate key, because the church came from God. So if you're just going to the church, but you don't want to be connected to the Creator, then
routine. That's the regular routine for you. It's just like this is what I do on Saturday. This is what we do on Tuesday. There's no meaning behind it.
Church is essential though.
So,
but it's just amazing that what you say, you built that relationship. That's what I want people to see. Like, it's important to have that relationship and spending personal time with that.
Absolutely. And you see a lot of going back to the whole fatherless conversation we were talking about earlier. You see a lot of that in the church, and you see good and bad examples of that. And I remember growing up and seeing the deacons and seeing that they were there every Sunday, and that they were good, role models for their children, and seeing like how that they formed that foundation. And then you see the other side of that too. So that was also, we didn't talk about that much early on, but that also plays a big part of that too, because that was a big part of our childhood, is seeing like going to church and being involved and singing in the choir, and then seeing the good and bad examples of that, and knowing, okay, well, that's we see the other side of that, and and we see how that's turning out, and then we see the good sides of that. I'm thinking, a couple examples that come to mind is our cousin Deacon Wells and Deacon Badger, and I'm just thinking all the people back in New Jerusalem Church of God that set those good examples. And but I think being like I said, going back to being observant, seeing, going and just being receptive to everything's going on. You see the good examples of that and how that can make a good impression, and you see the other side of it and how it can go the other way. So I think that was also very beneficial, and I appreciate Nanny for she stressed that this was going to be our foundation, and you can see the reflection of that in all of us, or we weren't in the streets when we weren't doing all this. She made sure that was part of it, and I'm so grateful for her for that.
The church is a product of God, but like your experiences in church does not define God.
Right.
Like you said with the choir, I remember, because I said in my previous testimony, I really didn't not always have the best experience in my church growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to look forward to coming to Brooksville to go to church with you all, to sing in the choir, to have that relationship with my cousins. I did not have that at my church at a point in time with the kids ministry. So it was like different experiences and different things that God used to show himself. When back then, a misconception of church, I was able to remember times like that. So I just wanted to say that to make sure people know that the church is essential. We're not saying that.
Right.
The point is, don't let your experiences define God.
Right. And you have to, the church, again, one of the things I really appreciate is not just about defining your relationship, but it's also the fellowship, right? I mean, and that plays a big part about whether or not you go, and how committed you are is to a particular church home is your fellowship with your fellow churchgoers. So I all of that's important, but the key fundamental piece of that is how you define your relationship with God, and that should be first and foremost.
So with all of that being said, the amazing examples you gave and with your beautiful testimony, what specific word points or tools, to sum it all up, do you have for the listeners in this situation to help them overcome in this area?
So I'll start by saying that how appreciative and how inspirational it is to see you to doing what you're doing and sharing your testimony, and allow others to share their testimony to hopefully inspire others. So just want to start by saying that, based on my own journey, don't make excuses. That's first and foremost. Use your circumstances as tools, as motivation to do something with whatever that means, but to use that to propel yourself forward, to help allow that to define your relationship with God, to define your relationship with your family, how you treat others. I think you use all of that as motivation and ways and activities and ways to help propel that forward. So I would say that relationships, your family is important. Use that, your relationship with God first, your relationship with your family second. That all of that is fundamental and forms a foundation. That foundation may or may not include a father, but understand that there are people around you that love you, want to see you do well, want to see you move forward, and you can't discount any of that, and all of that's very important for you as an individual going forward, and how you eventually relate to your children, form their relationship and their foundation for their journey moving forward.
So it's important to not be a victim, but be victorious.
Amen. That's good. I like that.
Hey, you're going to start preaching soon.
Okay, so my war point is, God keep putting this on my heart to say, but I'm just going to say this. Last night I had a dream, and I seen an interrogation room. With the interrogation room, you have a mirror. On the other side, detective can see everything that you're doing, but you can't see them. You just know you're in a room. and you just see yourself. But they can see you on the other side. The person on the other side, when they're interrogating you, they know everything about you. They study you. They know everything about you, but you don't know anything about that person on the other side. That's how God is for somebody who feels like they don't have a father. You have a father. God is a father to the fatherless. Everywhere you go, that two-way mirror is there. God sees you. You may not see him, but he's there. So I just want people who feel like they don't have a father, they don't have anybody who cares for them. God is always there. He's always watching you. He sees you. You just have to be willing to build that relationship with him to know him, because he's on the other side. He created you before you were even in your mother's womb. He knows everything about you, but you just have to be willing to let him in, because a lot of time with somebody who is in that room, they're protecting people who don't really even care about them. That's the way Satan is. You're protecting him and you want to be connected to him, but you need to let that go. With the father not having a father, and you're like, oh, well, he did this to me, he did that to me, and you're holding on to that, and you're not even seeing that God is on the other side. Let that go. Don't hold that hurt to your father. Do better than him. So my war point is from Song 68 verses 6. It said, God makes a home for the lonely. He leads the prisoner into prosperity. Only the stubborn and rebellious dwell in a parched land. Like I said, God knew you before you were in your mother's womb. Children, you are reward from the Lord. Know you are the answers to your family's prosperity. You are the reward. Do not allow your stubbornness to rob you from living in prosperity and wholeness. Forgive your father for what he did and be better. Be the father you wish he was. Do not be rebellious and continue the cycle of a fatherless home. Open your heart and allow God to lead and guide you. He is a father to the fatherless. Allow God to open the windows of heaven to rain down and cure your family curse of a parched land. Only in God is where the healing can begin. In the drought from your family, you are the key to unlock the door and set your family free. And that's one thing that I really want people to take away from that war point, and that you and your sisters have done. You have broken that cycle of not being there for your children. All of you who have children, you are great parents to them. I see how you guys are fathers and mothers to them. You broke that generational curse. You are the reward, and you are the key of unlocking that curse of having not that mother or father in your life. I just want that to be a war point and show that you guys are an example of that you are a reward and you are the key to unlocking that parched land for your family. So I just want to give a great just appreciation to you and your siblings for being the key, answering the call, and being the reward that God called you to be.
Well said, cousin. Well said.
My war point is based off of King David. So that's my example for men in the situation. Like, you have an example in the Bible, and the one that I wanted to point out was King David. David is a man after God's own heart, and his own earthly father overlooked him and did not see him for who he truly was. But this did not stop nor prevent him from becoming a king and winning many battles. And going back to what my sister said in Psalm 68:5, it says, God is a father to the fatherless. And in verse 6, it says, he makes a home for the lonely and leads the prisoners into prosperity. I say this to say your lack of experience from your earthly father does not disqualify you from the love of your heavenly father. You have access to the ultimate father, and in him, he will break the chains of fear and limitations in every area and guide you to everything you need to not only be an amazing father, but an overcomer in every area of your life and obtain prosperity in ways you could have never imagined. Remember, men of God, despite your circumstance, you are a king because you are a child of the King of Kings and Lords of Lords. God gives you the tools on how to be who you were called to be. Here is one of many. 1 Corinthians 16:13-14 says, be on guard, stand firm in your faith, and God, respecting his precepts and keeping your doctrine sound. Act like mature men and be courageous, be strong. Let everything you do be done in love, motivated and inspired by God's love for us. So I say all that to say what you were saying, like, look at the things around you. You have resources in your Bible. You have men of God in your life, and men of God from the past who did mighty things that you can look at as an example. And don't let your circumstances limit you. Let it expose you and let it reach you to the limits that you can never imagine.
Amen.
Well said, cousin. No, I want to say how proud I am of you two and what you guys are doing. And I hope that God keeps taking you on the path that gives you a bigger platform that allows you to spread your message to more and more people. So With that, I love you both, and I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. We love you too.
Thank you all for watching. We hope that you were inspired by Chad's testimony. His testimony is amazing. And we hope that you learned that from his story, do not let your circumstances limit you, but let this build you into the person that God has always designed for you to be. This wraps up this episode. Please like, comment, and share. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye, guys.